Breaking women's basketball news, Diana Taurasi, widely regarded as one of, if not the greatest women's basketball player of all time, has announced her retirement. She's the WNBA's all-time leading scorer. She won 3 championships with the Phoenix Mercury, where she spent her entire career. She was an 11-time All-Star. The future Hall of Famer, also named to 10 All-WNBA first teams. She won 6 gold medals.
Diana Taurasi, the basketball community is in shock as one of the most influential players in WNBA history announced her official retirement. Caitlin Clark's response to the news was unexpected, but her legacy is unmistakable, and many are wondering what the WNBA will do after her departure.
8 seasons in the WNBA, the league's all-time leading scorer, announcing her retirement. Going to tell us what is next. I'm so proud of you.
Robin,
incredibly proud of you.
All I know is I'm done with basketball.
Caitlin Clark's statement is already garnering media attention, and this is a significant change for women's basketball. Stay tuned, because this is a story you won't want to miss. Could this be the moment we've all been waiting for? What does this mean for the league going forward?
Diana's the greatest women's basketball player of the modern era. And when I say modern, I mean the last 40 years. What she has done is incomparable, especially when you look at the sum total of everything. Winning 3 national championships in college makes her one of the, if not the...
The basketball world is in shock after Diana Taurasi, one of the most illustrious and decorated players in WNBA history, announced her retirement. Although fans anticipated this day, nobody anticipated it to come so quickly. Taurasi had always been a fierce competitor who embodied toughness, leadership, and an unrivaled ability to take over games when it mattered most. But now, after 2 decades of dominance, she is calling it quits, leaving the WNBA wondering what will happen next.
Has loved playing with her. Anyone who has ever played against her has pretty much hated it because she's out there to win. She's gonna talk trash. She loves to compete, and that's what it's always been about for Diana Taurasi. It's one of the things that makes her so fun to watch. And you know, Hannah, she's kind of like the women's basketball Charles Barkley. She says things that are always funny, you know, and that she can get away with. Just a great personality to be around, and it's certainly, you know, we're going to miss watching her play and covering her.
Reactions from all across the basketball world, including her long-standing teammates, coaches, and the next generation of stars she assisted, began to pour in as soon as the news came. Everyone had something to say about the end of an era, but one response in particular caught our attention. Among the others, Caitlin Clark's, the young superstar who many consider to be the WNBA's future, had only one thing to say about Taurasi's retirement legend. That one word was very significant because, in many ways, Taurasi paved the way for players like Clark. She wasn't just a fantastic player, she was a symbol of what women's basketball could be. Her confidence, her swagger, and her ability to talk trash and back it up with clutch performances were all parts of what made her one of the most captivating players to ever set foot on a WNBA court. However, this is where things get interesting. Let it sink in that despite all the grandeur, all the awards, and all the championships, Diana Taurasi is retiring with a perfect Motor-4 record against Caitlin Clark. Taurasi has never defeated Clark on the court, and she never will.
You know, we just talked about it. It's been such an amazing ride.
I mean, we're talking about 3 consecutive national titles at UConn, 3 titles in the WNBA, 6 Olympic gold medals. What went into the decision that now was the time to step away?
You know, I don't think it was one moment. I think it was, I had to weed myself off,
yeah.
you know, the game a little bit. And I think just the last couple years, I just kept finding myself in different places. Not that I was working less hard or I wasn't just as focused on the season, but, you know, I think there was a time where, you know, there was a point where I was ready.
This feels like a true passing of the torch moment, whether Taurasi admits it or not. For years, Taurasi was the face of the WNBA, the player who embodied everything the league stood for. Now that spotlight is shining directly on Caitlin Clark, it's no secret that Taurasi had mixed feelings about Clark's rise. She made headlines last year when she downplayed Clark's impact, saying that rookies have to learn the hard way in the WNBA. She didn't exactly embrace Clark's arrival. In fact, she seemed a little annoyed by all the attention Clark was getting, And let's be real, that attitude wasn't surprising. Taurasi built her legacy by being the toughest player in the room, the one who never backed down from a challenge. She wasn't going to hand over the spotlight to Clark or anyone else without a fight, but reality has a funny way of forcing change. And now Taurasi is watching the game move on without her, led by the very player she once tried to downplay. For Clark, this is just the beginning. For Taurasi, this is the final chapter. Taurasi's retirement is undeniably one of the biggest stories in WNBA history, and it raises huge questions about the future of the league. For years, the WNBA has relied on toy star power to draw attention, to create rivalries, and to keep fans engaged. Now, with her gone, the league is fully transitioning into a new era, one where players like Caitlin Clark, Gugo Watkins, and Angel Reese will be expected to carry the torch forward, and that's where things get really interesting, because while Taurasi's legacy is cemented, there's no telling just how big Clark's impact will be. She's already breaking attendance records, TV ratings, and jersey sales. She's already drawn more attention to the WNBA than any other player in recent history, and now she doesn't have to share the spotlight with Taurasi anymore. This is her league now, and whether Taurasi likes it or not, the WNBA is changing in real time. But let's take a moment to appreciate just how incredible Taurasi's career really was. She holds records that may never be broken, including being the WNBA's all-time leading scorer with 10,646 points. She won 3 WNBA championships, 3 NCAA titles, and 6 Olympic gold medals. She played 20 seasons at the highest level, staying dominant well into her 40s, something very few players in any sport can claim. Her influence extends far beyond the court too. She played a huge role in growing the WNBA, making it clear that women's basketball isn't just worth watching, it's worth celebrating. That's why, even though Taurasi and Clark never had a real rivalry, Clark's reaction to her retirement says it all, because even the next generation of superstars knows Diana Taurasi wasn't just great, she was different. But here's the question everyone's asking: who's next now that Taurasi is gone? Does this mean we're about to see a major generational shift in the WNBA? Though she is in her 30s, Breanna Stewart is still playing at a high level. How long does she have left? Will Sue Bird ever return to coaching or broadcasting? Are we seeing the full changing of the guard in women's basketball? One thing is certain though, the WNBA is officially entering a new era. The question now is what Caitlin Clark will do next. Based on what we've seen so far, she is more than prepared for the challenge. The era of Taurasi is over. The era of Clark is just getting started, and for the WNBA, this is merely the beginning of something larger. Diana Taurasi's retirement isn't just the end of an era, it's the beginning of a massive shift in the WNBA. The league is changing in real time, and Taurasi's decision to step away from the game makes one thing clear: the WNBA's next generation is officially taking over. But what does this actually mean? What happens to the league without its longtime face? And how does this impact players like Caitlin Clark, who are now stepping into the biggest spotlight women's basketball has ever seen? One thing is certain: Taurasi didn't just retire quietly. She made sure to go out on her own terms with a move that surprised even her closest supporters. Most people assumed she'd announce it on The View, using the show's massive platform to deliver her final message. Instead, she went directly to Time magazine, breaking the story in a way that put her completely in control of the narrative. That's classic. Told, "Are I never letting anyone else dictate the terms of her career?" But as much as this moment is about her, it's also about what's next, because with Taurasi gone, the WNBA is entering a completely new era, one where Caitlin Clark is the biggest name in the sport. And Clark's response to Taurasi's retirement, a single word: legend. It was short, it was simple, and it said everything that needed to be said. Since Taurasi is no longer with us, there is no longer any discussion about whether or not Clark is the face of the WNBA. For years, the WNBA relied on veteran players like Sue Bird and Candace Parker to lead the league forward. But now that Caitlin Clark is in charge, there is no more debate about whether or not Clark is the face of the WNBA. The impact of Angel Reese, Gugo Watkins, and the upcoming generation of young superstars is already enormous. The WNBA is more popular than ever because to Clark's debut season, which broke all previous attendance and retail sales records. This is all because Clark is currently the sport's top attraction. This is where things get very interesting. In a way, it's poetic that Taurasi's entire career was based on being the best, staying at the top, and never backing down from a challenge. But the game caught up to her players like Clark, who introduced a new level of skill shooting and court vision that even tolls her opponents. Taurasi was always the ultimate competitor, the kind of player who didn't just want to beat her opponents, she wanted to embarrass them on the court. For this reason, it's fitting that she's retiring with a 0-4 record against Caitlin Clark, despite her greatness and all her talk about Clark having to learn the hard way in the WNBA. When questioned about Clark and the new generation of players taking over, Rossi, one of the greatest of all time, acknowledged that something significant was going to happen. Records are meant to be broken. She knows that her all-time scoring record won't last forever, and she knows that someone will eventually surpass everything she has accomplished. At the moment, that someone looks like Caitlin Clark, and the numbers support that. Rosie concluded her career with 10,646 points, which made her the all-time top scorer in the NBA. This isn't just the end of Taurasi's career, it's the start of a new chapter in WNBA history. The league must now fully embrace this new generation. For years, the WNBA has struggled to garner the same level of public attention as the NBA, but with players like Clark Ree and Watkins stepping into the spotlight, the league is now experiencing unprecedented growth. If she continues on her current pace, she will break that number within the next 10 years to win championships, MVP awards, and Olympic gold medals. It's both a challenge and an opportunity to lose a player like Taurasi. The WNBA is in very excellent hands if the early indicators are any indication. The difficulty is to fill the void left by one of the greatest players of all time. The opportunity is to let the current generation fully take over and elevate the league to new heights. In addition to being a fantastic scorer, Clark is a once-in-a-generation athlete who has the ability to drastically alter a franchise's trajectory after Taurasi leaves. She is currently the most well-known player in the league, and her influence is only beginning. It's Clark's turn to make history. This isn't just a transition, it's a full-scale takeover, and every player in the WNBA knows it, even Rossi, who may have doubted Clark. If the first few months of her professional career are any indication, she's going to take this opportunity and run with it. This is a new standard being set in the WNBA, and it's being driven by Clark's relentless pursuit of greatness. Taurasi was a legend. No one can deny that. First of all, she understands better than anyone what it takes to dominate the WNBA, and she secretly sees the same fire in Clark that made her so unstoppable for the past 20 years. Now that she is officially out of the picture, nothing stands in her way. The torch has been passed, whether or not that is what Taurasi intended. The WNBA is entering a new era, and if her response to Rossi's retirement tells us anything, she knows it too. The WNBA is changing more quickly than anyone could have predicted, and while Taurasi's retirement is a historic moment, what comes next will really define the league's future. Clark isn't just taking over, she's forcing the league to evolve. The level of excitement, viewership, and attention the WNBA is getting now, it's on another level compared to when Taurasi was at her peak. And let's not forget, this isn't just about Caitlin Clark. The entire next generation is stacked with talent. Players like Angel Reese, Gugu Watkins, and Hannah Hidalgo are bringing a level of competition and entertainment that the league desperately needed. Taurasi's dominance was undeniable, but women's basketball has never been this deep with talent before. Clark is leading the way, but she's not alone. The rivalries being built, the energy surrounding the league, and the fact that WNBA players are now becoming household names like never before. This is what the sport has been waiting for. Taurasi's legacy is secured, but the new era is already proving to be even more exciting, and with Clark at the forefront, the WNBA is finally stepping into its biggest era yet. Dean Taurasi's retirement marks the end of an incredible chapter in WNBA history, but the league is just getting started with Caitlin Clark leading the next wave of superstars. The game has never been in a more exciting place. Let me know in the comments whether you believe that this is officially Clark's league. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and enable alerts so you don't miss any updates on Caitlin Clark, the WNBA, or any of the most recent breaking news in women's basketball.